So you just moved to the country because you just bought this land, you're making a homestead, you got some acreage, and you think it's time to buy a tractor. It's the first time you've had this kind of purchase before. You may not have as much experience with these kind of things. So in this video, I'm going to show you some of the things to look for if you need a tractor for your new property. I'm Terry with Everything Homestead. Today I'm going to show you a few things to look for when you're going to find a tractor for your homestead. Now, the first thing that I think of, I guess, is the financial end of things. You spent a lot of money on the land, most likely, your home and all that. You may or may not have a ton of money left over for purchasing a tractor. Still feel like you need one. If you do need one, there's a good chance you're going to end up buying an older one. So a lot of this video is focused on things to look for to avoid as far as some mechanical problems that you might see when you're looking at a tractor that you might want to buy. Some of the things that I point out, if you can spot them when you're going to look at a tractor, could save you a lot of frustration and a lot of money if you don't understand what you're looking at. So here we go. If you're a farmer or you've been around tractors your whole life, this video is going to be of little use to you, but this is geared more for the people that are new to the farming or homestead life and are new to driving a tractor. This video is to help out the newbies out there. I grew up with this tractor I'm sitting on right now. This is my dad's old tractor, and so I'm pretty familiar with this particular one and a lot of other kind of tractors as well that I grew up with. So if driving a tractor is something that's new to you, the best thing I could recommend is going to have some education on how to run the thing. The tractor safety course is the best way to go, I believe. Contact your local county ag agency, or possibly even in your local high school. The ag department in high school probably has some resources to point you in the right direction to get some education on this. It's very, very important. The first thing you need to ask yourself before even looking for a tractor is, what are your intentions for using this tractor for? Are you going to be plowing? Are you going to be baling hay, cutting hay? Are you going to be pulling wagons? Are you going to be using like a brush hog type thing? Are you going to be hauling round bales? All sorts of scenarios. You need to ask yourself what your purposes are, because the tractors vary quite a bit as to what you're going to use them for. And so the first thing I want to point out is, on the tractors there's what's called a 3-point hitch setup, and 3-point is exactly that. There's 1, 2, 3 points, number of implements that hook up to this 3-point system. Sometimes you go to look at a tractor and for whatever reason these drawbars might be missing. This might be missing, you don't know. Sometimes they were never ever on the tractor to begin with. It depends on the tractor you're looking at. Sometimes you need a drawbar. If you're just pulling a wagon or pulling anything, you need a drawbar. Sometimes that's missing. None of these things are like a deal breaker, but you got to keep in mind, if you have to have these replaced, they do cost a fair amount of money. And so that could all factor into your decision and into the price that you're going to pay for your tractor. Another thing you want to look at is kind of along the lines of safety issue too, is this is the power takeoff connection right here. This is controlled by a lever up at the controller's seat, and this spins, which connects to a drive shaft, which can run like a brush hog or something like that, or various other things, balers and whatnot. But sometimes this unit doesn't shut off all the way. It's supposed to, when you shut it off with the lever up at the cab end, this should stop spinning completely. Some tractors, when they get older, these stop spinning, and that's a problem. It'd be kind of foolish to try to hook up a drive shaft to something that's spinning. Even if it's going at a really slow revolution, that's kind of a bad idea to try to hook something onto that. Hitting a moving target is actually very dangerous. And so obviously the best way to handle that, if you're stuck with the tractor in the situation, is just shut the tractor off and that'll stop spinning. But it's just one of those things. It can be fixed, but it's another thing that can cost you some money to get fixed. Another thing to look at while we're at the back of the tractor is the hookups for the hydraulic hoses. This one has got a single unit to hook up to. Some tractors have a dual unit, so like this one I have hooked up to my loader. Some of them have another one over here that you can hook up to whatever implement you're pulling. So you got to take that in consideration. I could plumb this plumbing for the loader directly into the tractor and free this up for something else if I wanted to, but there again, it depends on what your plans are. What do you want to use it for? Do you even need a loader or not? Sometimes, a lot of times, a single hookup unit is really all you need. So, since I just talked about the loader, this tractor has an old loader on it. It's a New Idea brand name loader. It's probably pushing 50 years old. This particular loader is hydraulically set up so it can raise hydraulically, and that's it. It relies on gravity to come back down. The weight of it brings it back down. And so then the bucket also is just a trip lever. It's not hydraulic either. You just pull a mechanical lever up at the driver's seat and it just drops. So there's no control as far as how fast or how slow the bucket opens up and dumps everything. It's a pretty simplistic design. So this is something you want to look at. Look at when you're looking at a tractor and a loader on the tractor. Preferably you want to get a fully hydraulic run loader where the bucket is hydraulically lowered and raised with hydraulics, and you can control it at a certain speed. And also with the hydraulic loader, it allows you to put downward pressure if you need to do any digging. It can put downward pressure into the ground to do some digging, where this one, it won't have any pressure downward to do any digging. So pay attention to the loader. And while I'm on that subject of paying attention to the loader, it's run by hydraulics. You want to check out the hoses. The hoses here that hook up to the loader, this one goes to the back of the tractor and hooks in, plugs in right up here into the loader, and runs the loader up and down through this hydraulic ram there. And one of the things I won't look for is rot or cracks or leaks in those hoses, because if they're leaking, you got to get them replaced, because it's going to blow. And when it blows, it's going to be at the worst time possible. And when these things blow, the hydraulic lines blow, you lose control of your loader and it just drops right to the ground. And that can be kind of a disaster at times, depending on the situation. So that's one of the things I will look for. There again, it's not the end of the world. Shouldn't stop you from purchasing the tractor, but keep in mind that's something you also have to replace. And they're not horribly expensive, but keep that in mind. You should get it done. On to the next item would be the tires. These tires aren't that old. They've got pretty good tread on them. There's no dry rot on them anywhere. They hold air really well. They're in good shape. And here again, it depends on what your plans are for usage. If you want to get a tractor just for mowing grass, you don't need these heavy treads on these tires. You can get the turf tires, I think they call them. They would tear up the grass a lot less, but you lose the ability to get good traction when you need them, like if you have snow or mud. So tractor tires like this can cost you thousands to replace. If you look at a tractor and they're all dry rotted or worn out, worn down with the treads, and you got to replace them, that could cost you a big chunk of money. That's something to consider when you're looking at a tractor. The front tires, like this particular one, I'll show you what the dry rot looks like. You see it's got cracks all around. These tires need to be replaced. And even on the sidewalls, there's some dry rot going on there. But these tires all have tubes in them, so they're a little less likely to go flat, but they will give out pretty soon. So these aren't so bad. These are more like the cost of a car tire, usually on these two-wheel drive tractors. If you get a four-wheel drive tractor and there's a little bit more of a beefy tire on there, they'll probably cost quite a bit more, but these aren't so bad. Another thing to keep in mind is more along the lines of a safety thing. These older tractors that don't have cabs, if you're sitting up there in the driver's seat, if you happen to have an instance where this tractor should roll over, you're in a lot of trouble, because that muffler and air cleaner are not going to hold this tractor up. And so if you're in this tractor seat when it rolls over, you're a goner. That's one of the safety things you probably want to get if you end up with a tractor like this. You can get a roll bar system. It's a rollover protection system. It's ROPS, I think they call it. It's just basically a metal U-frame that goes over the driver, so if it does roll over, it'll keep the tractor from collapsing down on the driver. Sitting on my lawnmower right now, my lawnmower even has it. This is what I'm talking about. Something like this, made for your tractor, built for your tractor, could save your life. You obviously want to take the tractor for a test drive. Make sure the motor runs correctly, make sure it doesn't sputter and the motor doesn't miss and stuff like that. You want to make sure the lights work like they should, and then the lights can be fixed and all that, but if it's got a sputter in the motor, you got to make sure that that's nothing serious. Other than that, if it works okay, the other major component that probably will go wrong, especially in these older tractors, is the hydraulic pump. You know, one way to kind of check out to see how it's doing is if you have like a loader on here, put the loader up in the air, and if you can, I don't know, if you're looking at a tractor and it's not yours, it's hard to say if they'll give you enough time to do this, but let it sit overnight. Come back the next day and see where that loader's at. If it's down on the ground, you've got an air leak somewhere in your hydraulic system. It doesn't necessarily mean your pump is bad, but it means there's an air leak somewhere, and if it's worn to that point, there's a good chance your hydraulic pump might need to be replaced, and that could be a few $1,000s just for the pump, much less the labor. You might as well double that, so that could be a pretty costly thing. The other thing you can look at, back here again at the 3-point hitch, same thing. You got the 3-point hitch up, come back the next day, if it's dropped down, you've got an air leak someplace. Another thing you can do to tell is if when you first start up the tractor, when it's been sitting overnight, you go to raise the 3-point up, or you go to raise your loader up, and it just goes like this, really slow, really jaggedy. That's air in the system trying to purge its way out, and so that air doesn't want to lift it right away. You got to give it a chance to warm up, purge the air out of the system, then they'll lift up better once it's warmed up. So if you go to look at a tractor at someone's place, ask them not to start it before you get there, because they'll start it, get it warmed up, and they'll make sure this is working just great because it's been warmed up and all the air's been purged out. So it's just one more thing to check out. One other thing to influence your decision is what kind of fuel do you want your tractor to run on. Primarily, there are gasoline and diesel. There are some LP ones typically, but you probably want to make your decision as to what's most readily available and what works for your situation. For me, the newer tractors aren't so bad. If you've got a diesel tractor that's a newer tractor, they've got built-in heaters sometime, and for the wintertime they start pretty well. But otherwise, the older tractors in the wintertime can be a challenge to start sometimes because it's a lot of compression in those motors to get them to turn over and start. So if I had a choice in an older tractor, I prefer gasoline. It's more readily available around here. I have a tank here at my place that works for any gasoline engine I have. I can use it for mixing up with my chainsaw fuel. I can use it for my tractor, the cars if I have to, and it's just a lot more convenient for me to go gas. A lot of you new homesteaders are going to be dealing with hay, so that's probably the biggest component you're going to be contending with as far as what type and size of tractor to purchase. Now this particular tractor is probably considered more of a mid-sized tractor. They make more compact tractors. They make large tractors, a lot bigger than this. But if you're going to be dealing with hay and tractors, round bales are probably the biggest thing you have to consider. If you're going to lift it with your loader, you got to make sure you have a loader that can hook up to an attachment to lift bales. You can try to lift it with this. It's a little more difficult. You have to do some strapping. They make it to stay on here. You have to make sure your loader is strong enough to lift those bales. Those bales can be 800 to 1,000 pounds sometimes. This mid-sized tractor is about the right size to do that, or even a bigger tractor would be even better. But some of those compact tractors can do it. But you get a big bale like that in front of a little tractor, you're asking for trouble. That's a lot of weight to be extending out there. You could tip your back wheels off the ground. It's a lot easier to tip over your tractor if you get the bale too high. If you come over here and if you get the bale loading or the bale mover that hooks to the 3-point in the back of a tractor, they work really well. You could just hook it to here, drop it down, slides underneath the round bale, lifts it up. They work really well for moving around bales. The only downside is it only comes up a little over your knees in height, maybe up to your waist. Probably won't be high enough to get it on and off of a trailer though. It's just made to move from point A to point B from your hay storage area over to the animals. So keep in mind how you want to move your bales, whether it be the loader, the back end or not, and preferably a little bit bigger tractor for those big bales. It would be really helpful. Small tractors can do it. A lot more dangerous though. So this video is just to get you headed in the right direction. There's a lot more things to consider and look at when it comes to tractors. You just gotta use your best judgment in a lot of ways and figure it out for yourself what fits your situation. But my next video I'm gonna do is geared more along the lines of tractor safety. There's so many things that are incredibly dangerous with these machines. These machines are so powerful and unforgiving if something were to go bad. So watch this video over here. Click on that to learn how to operate these things a little bit more safely, especially if you've never used one before.